Alright, so this video is intended to help you figure out how to do the point of view assignment. Let's start with this rubric, because this rubric right here looks stinking terrible. That being said, there's nothing that's totally crazy or absolutely brand new in this rubric. We're just leveling up your understanding of how to blend quotations with your words that you showed in the theme assignment, and then also showing your understanding of the concept of point of view, which I think is a little easier than theme. So concept-wise, I think point of view, easier than theme. Skills-wise, what you're going to be doing in your writing is a little trickier than what you did in theme, potentially, but not entirely impossible. Let's start. I'm going to color code this rubric with the different components. So let's start by reading the rubric together. You identified the correct point of view. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'll just make that one red. Great. You wrote in such a way that someone who hadn't read the question you're responding to or the story you're writing about would understand what you're saying. We'll talk about what that means more in just a second, but for now I'll make that purple. You included at least one piece of text evidence. Okay, so a piece of text evidence, maybe I'll make that one green, blended with your words to prove your argument of what the point of view of the story is told from. You provided context for the quotation you used and added your analysis of that text evidence to explain why it shows that point of view. So for providing context, I'm going to put that the same color as blending with your words. I'm going to make that blue. I'm going to make blending with your words blue also. The reason is, usually when you're blending a quotation with your words, you're also providing context. That is, you're saying what's happening in the story to lead into your quotation. And then you also have to have an analysis of what that text evidence to explain your point of view. And we'll make that one orange. Last thing is you need to answer question 4 with at least 2 specific reasons to support your answer. Question 4 is way over here. Now, I don't have an example of that, so if you get stuck, make sure to raise your hand in class. Let's look at my example. In my example, I had this thing from the belt. And you can pause the video right now if you want to read this excerpt from the belt. The question that you're responding to says, what point of view is the narrator telling the story from? Explain using complete sentences and at least one quotation blended with your words, including details that let any reader understand what you're talking about. So the idea behind our writing this time, it's kind of weird to get your head around, but you are writing to an audience that doesn't know the question you're writing about and has never read the story that you're referencing in the question. So what that means is you kind of need to include the question. In this case, what point of view is the story from? You kind of need to include that in your first sentence as an answer. Take a look how I did that. The short story The Veldt by Ray Bradbury is written from the third-person limited point of view. So anybody who comes along and reads this little piece of writing I wrote would understand what I'm talking about. They wouldn't have needed to have read the question that I was responding to. They know exactly what I'm saying. That's third-person limited. So I'm going to make that whole thing purple. Now, that being said, I have to identify the correct point of view. It's the third-person limited point of view. So I'll make that red. This is because we as readers only have access to the thoughts and feelings of George Hadley, the father. When he is standing outside a nursery that projects a person's thoughts onto the walls, we as readers know that he is, and I used a ... here to cut out part of a quotation, filled with admiration for the mechanical genius. So right here, what I just did is blend my words with the text evidence, but I did that by saying what is happening in the story at the moment that text evidence shows up, which, unfortunately, as a reality to kind of get your head around, I had to go back and reread, which is something you have to do all the time when you analyze literature. I had to go back and reread this section and figure out what exactly was going on at that moment in the story. And there's my text evidence. That text evidence is showing one of George Hadley's feelings, which is good because that's showing it's third-person limited. And then here's my analysis. An analysis is me explaining why that quotation relates to my argument up top, which is that the story is a third-person limited. So my analysis says this line shows us that we have access to his feelings, but the narrator is talking about him. This creates a third-person limited point of view. So with that, I'm going to color that one orange to match the rubric. And I'll make sure this color-coded version ends up on the actual download you get. So your job is to go through All Summer in a Day, Fear, and Max at Sea. You can pull quotations from this example, or you could go back to the story and pull a quotation for your writing, your choice.